Stephen Colbert was fired. They're basically ending his show. And I dove into some of the economics on this show. I know a little bit, right? With the economics of this radio show, I've obviously done a lot of Fox News. I produce and help run and have run digital shows for some time through Outkick. So I'm aware of what shows cost. The Colbert Show budget blew my mind. Let me hit you with a few stats here. Stephen Colbert had 200 employees working on his show. They had 200 brains trying to make you laugh, and they failed because he went full on politics. They couldn't remotely be funny. The show had a budget of $130 million. Putting that into sports context, team, look this up. I believe the Florida Marlins, or the Miami Marlins as they are known now, the whole baseball team gets paid $67 million. Stephen Colbert's TV show had twice the budget of the entire Miami Marlins professional baseball player team budget. And Stephen Colbert made $15 million on this show. And he's now gone. And the show is going to be canceled in May. And I believe we have some fun audio of this. This is too perfect. The final guest, when the first guest after Colbert announced
Schiff.
his show.
Yes. Exactly who you'd want to have on if you're trying to entertain people at night before they go to sleep and, give them, you want Adam Schiff on if you want somebody who's really funny. Look, Stephen Colbert had a platform handed to him that he didn't build, that he didn't honor by doing the thing that he first and foremost should have done. The mission of that role. Like we always say here, hey, this is the house that Rush built. Our mission is to serve you, the audience, as best we can every single day and carry on Rush's legacy. Stephen Colbert's mission should have been, obviously it's a different platform, different role. His mission should have been to make the American people laugh and relax to the greatest of his ability. All people, just to make people laugh at night. And instead, he decided that he was going to join the ranks of the Trump deranged and pander to the political proclivities of a bunch of crybabies who can't handle that they can't live in reality. So this was a richly deserved cancellation. Stephen Colbert destroyed the audience that he was given. And the fact that he was getting paid as much as he did is an absurdity. And it's just a corporate legacy thing that he was able to seize for himself to get that kind of a price tag. And now I think we don't have to really hear much or deal with him. He's not a great stand-up. He's not going to go on to do great things. He'll probably launch some crappy podcast that will get a boost for about 2 months, Clay. And then he'll realize, wait, no one actually really cares what I have to say.
So let me ask you this. Were you, I know we've talked about this a little bit before, were you a late night TV show viewer back in the day? Maybe in
when
the
I was
summer
really young,
sometime?
I was a Leno guy. Even though I grew up in New York, I was a Leno guy.
Okay, so I loved Letterman. And I loved Letterman even when he was on after for the late, what was it called? Late night, which came
this
on
is one
after
of these moments
the
where you
Tonight
realize
Show.
there's definitely two different people on this show thinking about things in a very different way. I always thought Letterman was just a total product of the machine, not funny at all, and a smarmy jerk. Jerk.
Oh, wow. I really liked Letterman. But what I will say is, first of all, most of the time when you're a kid, you're not able to stay up. I loved staying up. I felt like in the summers, this is a whole different topic, but in the summers, basically I was just home all day by myself. My kids now have a billion different summer camps that they go to for sports, and they go to all these different events. I was at home. I would read, and I would watch the Chicago Cubs and Harry Carey on WGN, and then I would watch like baseball because the Cubs used to play only during the day. And I would stay up late, and I would watch David Letterman most nights. And he came on, I think, at 11:30 Central Time in Nashville. And he was after Johnny Carson back in the day, if I remember correctly, and then after Jay Leno eventually, if I remember it correctly. And then obviously he left and he went to The Late Show, and this is the show that's now being canceled that Colbert has followed him on. Colbert's
you know who
legacy.
I like?
Who'd you like?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
Do you like?
I like Craig Ferguson,
I didn't think
the
he was
Scottish
bad.
guy.
Yeah.
I thought he was
Yeah.
funny. I thought he was and very self-effacing. I didn't watch him religiously, but I remember whenever I would stumble onto him, I'd say I watched late night from like 7th grade, maybe through high school, so about 4 or 5 years. Would have been like the late '90s, early 2000s, and I thought Craig Ferguson was maybe that was even later on. I forget when he was on, but he was pretty funny. And I like Conan too.
Yeah.
Really, the only one I don't like is Letterman. And no, that's not true. And the current crop are all garbage.
Okay.
Garbage.
So if you had told me when I was 14 or 15, hey, you get to have any job in media, there would have been 2 jobs in media that I wanted, 14 or 15 years old. I would have wanted to be like late night talk show host. Seems like an incredible job. You're trying to make people laugh. You're even parts Democrat, Republican, ridicule. And the other one would have been Sports Center anchor. I would have the idea that you got to go on and talk about sports. I would have said those were the 2 that I would say are the best possible jobs in media. I think Colbert's legacy is he destroyed late night television, because it's one thing if you fail, right? If Stephen Colbert had a show and he had failed, that happens, right? Everybody gets canceled at some point in time. If you do movies, they're not always box office huge successes. If you do media long enough, you're probably going to get fired somewhere, or your company's going to go bankrupt and you're going to have to find a new job. Just FYI, that's happened to Buck. That's happened to me. Like, that's life in the media universe. I will say, Colbert was bombing. He decided to turn his comedy show into left-wing propaganda, and everybody else followed him. Jimmy Fallon followed him. Jimmy Kimmel followed him. Gutfeld obviously went the different direction at Fox News, but the legacy of Colbert is not only that he's getting canceled now, it's that he destroyed late night television once and for all. Whatever you thought about Letterman, Leno, back in the day, Conan, whatever you thought about Johnny Carson, that was, I think, a cultural connective tissue. Late at night, people would put on those shows, they would kick back, they would laugh, and they would get ready for bed. And now it doesn't exist. I think all these shows are going to get canceled, and I think they killed themselves. And I think Gutfeld will continue, and I know a lot of you probably watch that on Fox News at night, but I do think it's unfortunate that that entire cottage industry is basically going to vanish. I really do. And I'm going to miss it. Now, people might say, oh, well, the podcast universe, whether it's Theo Vaughn, who is a Nashville-based guy, or there's all these different comedy podcasts. Certainly Joe Rogan has an element of this. And maybe people watch those now that would have watched late night television, and that's the biggest combatant. But I do think if Colbert hadn't gone left-wing political, I don't think his show would be getting canceled right now. I think there would have been enough longevity in those shows that everybody else wouldn't have followed him over the woke waterfall if all they had to do was make fun of Democrats and Republicans. That's all he had to do.
I think that he chose the selfish and easy route, which was to just turn his show into the New York Times editorial page with jokes.
Yeah.
Which is what it became. And it also was really sanctimonious and kind of mean-spirited a lot of the time. And instead of just, you can make jokes. Look, Shane Gillis, who you and I were playing some clips from yesterday, he's a guy, I'm not sure I wouldn't say he's conservative. I mean, he's willing to, he says things sometimes that, he plays around. He basically goes after both sides from what I can see. Like, he'll make fun of the wokeness, but he'll also take some shots at the right, but not in a mean way, in a funny way. And so I'm not as clear. I think he would probably think of himself almost as like a Joe Rogan politically, a little more non-aligned. That's just my guess. I don't know. You might know him better than I do, but he's not a dogmatically right-wing guy. But you get the sense that his overriding goal is to say things that have a little edge and make people laugh.
Yes.
And that is what he's actually trying to do. Stephen Colbert, you would tune in, and it was no different than MSNBC. It's just they would slap a joke on the end of the line. And that's gross, and it's really an abandonment of what that show was supposed to be.
What I would say about Shane Gillis, and this is my view on comedy to the extent you need it at all, the most egalitarian, fair thing you can do is make fun of everybody across the board. So what they tried to do with identity politics was say, oh, a white male comic could never make fun of a black woman. That's the New York Magazine headline after Shane Gillis's ESPYs is basically, oh, these are unfunny jokes. You can't make jokes about the WNBA. Why? Much of the WNBA deserves to be ridiculed. So, by the way, could the NBA or the NFL? And what I would say is basically the South Park doctrine, which is the goal is humor above everything. If there is gold in those comedic hills, it should be mined. Whether the person who's getting made fun of is white, black, Asian, Hispanic, gay, straight, trans, whatever your identity is, if you aren't being made fun of, then we're applying identity politics to the equation, and identity politics destroys comedy because it turns it into propaganda, which is what Stephen Colbert became. And I think that's why his show failed. And I think it's why a show like South Park has remained culturally relevant for 30 years, whatever you think of it, because they're going to go where the humor is, even if it makes people uncomfortable. And often great comedy does make people uncomfortable. You shouldn't always love every joke. That's me on the soapbox.
You know, when Shane Gillis says that watching History Channel documentaries about World War II is stage one conservative, like that's funny.
Yeah.
You know? Like you're going down the long dark pathway of conservatism because you want to watch History Channel documentaries. Like, no, and that's a gentle joke, but I'm just saying, like, you know, that's actually meant to be funny. I know I like that joke. I thought it was pretty funny. It's pretty true. And now all of a sudden people are like, you're not a comedy.
Not going to stun you, but I like a lot of comedy that others would consider to be edgy and inappropriate. So come after me for that too.
All right, save money on your cell phone service without sacrificing any quality in your calls. That is what you get with PureTalk. And when you switch to PureTalk from AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile, you're going to save hundreds of dollars a year. PureTalk costs $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and plenty of data every month. The well-kept secret in the cell phone industry is that PureTalk uses the same 5G network on the same 5G towers as one of those three companies I mentioned. You'll get the same quality of service at a fraction of the price. And with PureTalk, you can keep your phone and your number. From your cell phone, dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month. You can literally switch over to PureTalk in about 10 minutes. I've got PureTalk. It says it right at the top corner of my phone. You should get PureTalk too. Save money, get better service, customer service. Dial pound 250, say the keywords Clay and Buck, switch to PureTalk, dial pound 250, say Clay and Buck, wireless by Americans for Americans.